Hey everyone, and thanks for joining me today. My name is Matt, and today I am going to talk about Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Now, I know I'm a little late to the party here. It's not anything new, but something I wanted to talk about since we've been on the topic of different investments. And really, all I talk about are stocks and ETFs. So, I wanted to switch up the investments that I talk about here and just let you hear my opinion about cryptocurrencies. Now, to start this off, I can say Bitcoin really seems to be one of the most controversial investments that I've ever seen. And that does include CDOs from the '08 recession. And I think the reason being is because there's a lot of speculation. We'll dive more into that later, but Bitcoin for a while there was something that was one of the biggest topics in finance. It was what all the news networks were talking about. You were constantly hearing about it, from stories of Facebook creating a cryptocurrency to 50 Cent becoming a millionaire from it, and then later on denying the stories that he was ever a millionaire from it. And if you were fortunate enough to have purchased cryptocurrencies back, or specifically Bitcoin, back in 2015 and sold it at its peak, you made a lot of money. There's absolutely no denying that. But at the same time, if you bought it when there was a lot of buzz around it, then unfortunately you lost a lot of money. And that's what I want to talk about today, is how would this maybe fit into your portfolio, or why it's not something in my portfolio. Now, full disclosure, I have bought it in the past. I think I only put like $15 in it though. I just wanted to play around with it and see what would happen, but it's no longer something that is in my portfolio. And before we jump into this conversation, you might see I have a new clock back there. It's still trying to figure out like where to put it, how you could see it better, all of that stuff. But it says on it YouTube, and it does say subscribe. So if you haven't done so already, that'd be super cool of you. But anyway, let me jump into my thoughts on cryptocurrencies. Now, I should start this off by saying, and I hope all of you feel this way as well, if there's an opportunity to make money with an investment, I'm all ears. I'm definitely interested in ways that I can learn how to make money, but I don't put my money into things that I don't know about, or that I don't feel comfortable putting my money towards without knowing what's going to drive these prices, what's going to move it, and how is it going to react to the market. So, of course, before I did investing with this, or why I chose not to, I did my full research, and some people might see different sides of it than what I saw, but again, I did my research, and it's just not something I felt fit well into my portfolio, and that's again what we're going to talk about today. Admittedly, my biggest problem when it comes to Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is the valuation aspect of it. You might have seen my Watchlist Wednesday videos where I actually do an analysis of different companies, and I will either do financial calculations like using discounted cash flows to find the fair value of a company, or do a more qualitative analysis where I understand the board of directors, the CEO of the company, their competition, all of that good stuff, where they're headed to, their competitive advantage, to see if it's something that will fit into a portfolio in the long run. And that's not something you can do with Bitcoin. Of course, you can look at charts, you can look at, head and shoulders top down trend lines, or maybe even be able to use moving averages, even though the price doesn't really close. I don't know how to go about that, but I'm sure that there's more technical ways of analyzing these coins, but I'm more of a qualitative investor than a quantitative investor. So that's kind of my first thing against it, is it's just hard for me to be able to put a price on Bitcoin when I don't know about its cash flow, I don't know the direction it's headed to, I don't know anything along those lines, because essentially it's just a currency. And later on, I'm going to actually talk more about the value of Bitcoin, so stay tuned for that. And right now, I do view cryptocurrencies, and Bitcoin specifically, as a more speculative investment. And that's just simply not the way I invest. Personally, I do feel if I wanted to be a speculative investor, I personally would feel more comfortable by using something like options and for stocks to be speculative on different investments than I would be with Bitcoin. Again, that comes down to the valuation and just it's something I'm more comfortable with. I personally feel options might be a better strategy for speculative investments, but you might feel otherwise. And if you don't have the knowledge on trading options, then I could definitely see where if you wanted a speculation, then a cryptocurrency might fit well for you. Another reason why I never really got completely into cryptocurrencies is because it's a 24/7 market. So the market for trading cryptocurrencies never stops. There's other investments like this, but that is one of the things I like about the stock market is when it's operating, you know the times. It's going to be that 9:30 to 4 Eastern time every single time that the market's open. And that just allows for you to kind of control your schedule and know when you need to be focusing on this, gives you the off time to do your research. But I don't like having to worry about an investment while I sleep, especially considering there's investments that you can make that'll generate money for you while you sleep. Example of that is an online business. No, it's not a stock, but you can create an online business that in theory is going to generate revenue for you while you sleep. Where Bitcoin, you might go to bed and it's $8,000 a share. You can wake up in the morning, it could be 5,000, it could be 10,000. You don't know that direction, and the market is always changing. So it's hard to be able to watch something, at least in my opinion, if it's on a 24-hour cycle. And I don't want to have like alarms or notifications set up in case something triggers a selling point and I need to wake up and sell my position. So I like more of a scheduled approach to investing. And really, if you are somebody that is involved with cryptocurrencies, you're definitely aware that the market never stops there and you really have to be on it at all points of the day. It also concerns me that people use Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies as a way to get rich quick. And that really brings up two problems for me. The first one is that is entirely assuming that history will repeat itself and Bitcoin will definitely increase in the future. I'm not saying it won't, but you're relying on something that happened in the past to happen again on the future without information. And again, that's just not easy to do, and history doesn't always repeat itself. Certain things are cyclical, the market's efficient, I know all of that stuff, but at the end of the day, just relying on what happened in the past to happen again in the future is not my style of investing. The other problem I have is people have heard how much money you make off this. And I'm sure that there's people out there that heard, hey, I made millions of dollars from trading Bitcoin. You should go ahead and do it. And this might be somebody who's in a lot of debt and they're going to try to use this as their way to pay their bills, cover their debt, all of that. And again, it's a really speculative investment and you can lose all of that. And I can say, if you are somebody that has a lot of debt, you don't have an emergency fund set up, you don't have a healthy savings account, then you really shouldn't be investing. And really, you shouldn't even be investing in stocks for that matter. If you're in debt and you have other financial obligations, pay those off before you put money into the market, whether that be the cryptocurrency market, the bond market, the stock market, the commodities market. Always make sure that you're in a good place financially where if you lose everything that you've invested, you're not going to have to miss dinner that day, or you're not going to have to miss your mortgage payment. So keep that in mind as well. Never use the stock market as a way to pay off your debts. Use it as more of a way to create wealth for yourself and maybe as a very, very, very long-term saving strategy. Lastly, I saw this chart a while ago and I can't find it. Hopefully I'll find it when I'm doing the editing for this video and I could pop it up, but I just can't seem to find it, where it showed the price of Bitcoin on a chart compared to news that was circulating around Bitcoin. And obviously, when there was bad news, the price dropped significantly. When there was good news, it did increase. But I don't like investments that revolve around the news and having that drive the price. Honestly, I don't even like investments where trading volume influences the price. That's why I look at companies that you don't necessarily hear about every day because there's less trading volume there. And of course, you can say the same thing about stocks. Tesla's a great example of that. However, the news had, at least to me, it appeared to have a more significant impact on the direction of Bitcoin than the news has on stocks. When the news does influence stock prices, you can almost see within 3 days usually that the price will recover and everything will be back to normal, where these trends would go on for months at a time with Bitcoin. And so just to kind of summarize that section, here's why I don't necessarily believe in Bitcoin as an investment, at least in my portfolio. Again, yours might be different and you might have a reason to be investing in this. But for me, it's hard to value. It's a speculative investment. There's news-driven price fluctuations. And also, one thing I didn't mention is a lot of people that seem to have money involved in these cryptocurrencies are trading it. They're not investing. And we won't dive deep into that conversation on the differences between the both, but I'm not a trader. I hold on to my positions for a long time. I am more of an investor. A lot of these people try to time the market, or a lot of people out there will use this as a trading aspect, which, hey, if that's your style, go for it. But it's not something I feel comfortable with my money right now. And as somebody with a long-term outlook, it's really hard to have a speculative investment as a buy and hold investment. Now, all of that being said, I do have arguments kind of for Bitcoin, but bear in mind, this section is going to be a little contradictory to what I just said, so bear with me here. And the first one is blockchain. Now, I know, blockchain, Bitcoin, not the same thing. Blockchain is the technology that creates the Bitcoin. And I'm a big fan of blockchain technology, actually. I like that it has instant settlements for stock trades. You can transfer large sums of money very quickly. And with this whole universal auditing system, I think that's another great way to just create transparency, especially in public companies. If we have situations like Luckin Coffee, they could have been audited by many different people, and maybe those kind of fraud things could have come up earlier than they did. So I like the transparency that blockchain creates, as well as instant settlements. When I first started in finance, it was the T+3 was regular ways, now it's T+2. So it's getting a little bit shorter. Being able to purchase a stock and have it settle right then and there is going to be beneficial for the investor. As well as wiring money. There's nothing worse than when you get a check and you see it in the account, but you can't really access it for a few days because it's still settling. That, to me, is just a waste of time, and I know I want access to my money immediately. So I think that blockchain is something that can create a lot of value in the future. And, if Bitcoin came around and the success of blockchain is the result of Bitcoin, then I'll be absolutely thankful that Bitcoin came around, because I really think blockchain can influence our future in a positive way. And let me give some context for my next kind of argument for Bitcoin, I guess, there's a book called Sapiens that I've read. Well, listen to the audio version. I'll link that down below if you're interested in it. It's a really interesting book about human evolution. Now, take it all with a grain of salt. I went into it with an open mind just to hear somebody's theories. Don't necessarily agree with everything, but I thought some of it was interesting. And really, the book covers everything from humans' evolution to how dogs became house pets, how dogs have an instinct that makes them suitable for house pets as opposed to chimpanzees, or how we've all come from bonobos. Anyway, pretty interesting book if that's something you're interested in. But one of the things the author talked about was gold. And he made an argument that at first I completely disregarded, but then I listened and it made a lot of sense. And basically what he was saying is gold is useless. It's inferior to silver and copper when it comes to conducting things. And it's not as strong as titanium, steel, really any other kind of metals out there, but it's pretty. And that's why we like it. And that's why we put a high value on it. And that's why we believe gold is worth a lot of money, even though at the end of the day, it's kind of a useless metal. I think the only thing gold is really good for is because it's so soft, it's easy to stretch long wires out of. But other than that, gold doesn't really do a whole lot for us. And it has this high value. At one point in time, our currencies were backed on gold. And that was really just nothing more than we believe gold is worth this, so we're going to base our dollars off it. And now our money is backed by the full faith and credit of the government. So how much of our money is actually still a belief? I'll let you decide that. I'm going to kind of leave it there. But I just thought it was a really interesting point because, we believe things have value. But at the end of the day, there's really nothing saying $10 will get you $10 worth of something, other than that's just something we can agree on, that $10 is going to get me X amount of whatever. When I was talking earlier about valuing companies, I know that's where I was contradicting myself because, obviously there's a standard that we believe $1 is worth $1, $10 worth $10. Bitcoin, we don't know what's backing that up, but I could see where somebody can argue the same thing for $1. Now, that being said, I still would prefer having $1 than a coin. And reason being is because imagine taking out a loan on a house. And, with $1, it's pretty steady. You know what you're expecting. You can calculate how long it's going to take for you to pay it off, the interest, all of that. Bitcoin, though, is so volatile that, your mortgage could be $100,000 one day, and then if you have it in coins, the next day it could be $150,000. Then the next day it could be $75,000, so on and so forth. And it's just too volatile, at least for me, when it comes to loaning money. And so that's where I also think the dollar is a superior form of currency, because it actually is stable. Now, yes, inflation, price increases, I'm aware. But again, when it comes to loaning money and for long-term outlooks, especially for something like a mortgage that's 30 years long, it just makes sense to have something that doesn't, do that all day long, and it's more on a straight line throughout time. So that's kind of my arguments there. I know this video was going to be all over the place there, so I apologize about that, but just wanted to share my 2 cents on Bitcoin. Love to hear your feedback on it and what you think of it. If it's something you have on your portfolio, I'd really love to hear, how you chose it, or maybe other currencies and why you chose other currencies over it, because I like to learn about this stuff. Not saying it's somewhere I'm going to put my money, but I like learning about making money. And even if it's not something I personally do, I just enjoy having that knowledge because it allows for me to make more informed decisions. That being said, let's keep it friendly there in the comments. I don't want anybody to be arguing over this topic here, but I'd love to hear your feedback. So with all that said, we'll wrap up there. Make sure you follow the advice of the clock and subscribe to the channel. If you like this video, give it a thumbs down. If you thought I was on some useless rant, did I say give it a thumbs down? If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If I was on a rant, though, you can give it a thumbs down. And with all that said, you could be anywhere in the world, and you're right here with me, and I really appreciate that. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video, but I will let you go ahead, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you tomorrow for Watchlist Wednesday. And no, we're not going to be valuing Bitcoin tomorrow.